A Day in the Life of a Debt Collector by Munshi Premchand. Munshi Premchand was one of the greatest literary figures of modern Hindi literature. He is credited with having brought realism to Hindi literature. Most of his writings tell stories about very ordinary people. His novels shows the problems of the rural peasant classes of his time, such as communalism, corruption, zamindari, debt, and colonialism. He employed simple language and often wrote in the dialect of the common people to make his work reach out to a large number of people. This story is set in pre-partition India, before India and Pakistan parted. During this time, majority of people lived in the villages, and caste and religion ruled very important in the life of the people, especially those who lived in the villages. The story captures a battle of wits between two characters, a wealthy debt collector and a very poor car driver. The debt collector in this story is proud of himself for being able to extract dues from his debtors. And even in this story, he tries to fork out a large sum of money from the car driver. But finally, we see that the car driver outsmarts him at his own game due to the debt collector's superstitious beliefs. Set Chetaram bathed, poured water in sacrifice to Shiva, chewed two peppercorns, drank two pots of water, and taking his stick went out to dun the people who owed him money. One fine morning, Seth Chetaram got up, took a bath, worshipped Shiva by pouring water on it, chewed two peppercorns. Here, peppercorns are spices or mouth freshener. So he chewed two peppercorns, drank two pots of water, took his stick, and went out of his house to go and dun people to pay their debt. Now, dun here means forcefully. So he would go and forcefully ask people to pay their debts. In the first paragraph, we get an idea of his morning routine. So, in the exam, you might be asked to describe his daily routine. So, it's good that you mark this paragraph. Sechi was some 50 years old. The hair had fallen from his head, and his skull was as clean as a sandy field. His eyes were small, but absolutely round. Right under his head was his belly, and beneath his belly his legs looking like two pegs stuck in a barrel. This barrel, by the way, wasn't empty. It was chock full of energy and vitality. The way it jiggled and danced when Seiji was putting the pressure on some defaulting debtor would have shamed an acrobat. He would glare so fiercely and roar so loudly that a regular mob would gather to watch him. But you couldn't call him a miser because, when he was in his shop, he threw down a piece to every beggar. Of course, at those times his frown was so severe, and his eyes so terrible, and his nose so wrinkled, that the beggar would never go by his shop again. Now let's see who is this man Sedji. He was about 50 years old man. His hair was bald. He had no hair in his head. Therefore, the author has compared his skull to a sandy field. His eyes were small but very round. Right under his head was his stomach, and below his stomach was his two legs. The narrator says that he looked like two pegs stuck in a barrel. Here, pegs are wooden leg. So he has compared his leg to a wooden leg that is stuck in a barrel. But he was full of energy and vitality. When he collects money from people who owed money, His whole body would move so much that he was moving so energetically that an acrobat would be put to shame. Okay, this is an exaggeration. When he collect money from people, he would glare so fiercely, means angrily, and roar, shout so loudly that a mob would gather to watch. But we cannot fully say he was a stingy man. Why? Because when he was in his shop, he threw down a piece to every beggar. But when he gives money, he would frown at them, and his eyes looked so terrible and his nose so wrinkled that the beggar never dared to come by his shop again. He was absolutely dedicated to the theory that persistent dunning was the way to prosper. From right after breakfast until evening, he was constantly occupied with dunning. In the course of his visits, he would find the lunch set aside in one house, in another he would partake, at his debtor's expense, of milk, puris, sweets, and other dishes. A free meal is nothing to be sneezed at. He had a theory in life. That is, persistent dunning was the way to become rich. Okay, so he believed in order to become rich, he has to practice persistent dunning, meaning repeatedly asking someone for money. So, as soon as he finished his breakfast, he would start his dunning till evening. He would never eat food at home because he used to regularly get free meals in the house of people he goes to collect money. He says, a free meal is nothing to be sneezed at, meaning he would never let go of a free meal. As long as it is free, he would partake it. This is the way he would save money. Save just 1 anna per meal, and then for this one item in his 30 years of money lending, he would have saved some 800 rupees. Okay, so he says even if he can save just 1 anna per meal, then in 30 years he would be able to save 800 rupees. Then, when he came back a second time, he would get milk, curds, oil, vegetables, and cow dung cakes or other fuels. Generally, he didn't have to get his own dinner in the evening either. So he never failed to go out on his dunning expeditions. The heavens could burst asunder, fire rain down, a tornado strike, but Seiji, as though obeying the immutable law of nature, was sure to go out to collect his debts. Seiji would not only get free breakfast, but also dinner. When he comes back from his dunning, the house where he had his breakfast would give him milk, curds, oil, vegetables, cow dung cakes, and other fuels, so he never had dinner at home. Dunning was a very important part of his life, so no matter how bad things get, no matter how bad the weather, he would go out on his dunning expeditions. This morning his wife asked, lunch? No, Setji thundered. Supper? We'll see when I get back. Okay, so his wife would ask him if he would come home for lunch or supper, but he would thunder back and tell her that he is not sure. There was a farmer who owed Setji 5 rupees. For 6 months, the rogue had paid neither principal nor interest. He hadn't even come around with some little offering. His house was at least 3 miles away, and therefore Seji had put off going. He decided that he would go today and not leave without getting his money from the rascal, no matter how much he might scream and moan. But it was unpleasant to make such a long journey on foot. People might say, a big name but a poor show. He wants to be called a Seth, but he hops it on foot. So he ambled along at a leisurely gait, looking here and there and chatting with people he met, so it would be understood that he was just out for a stroll. So there was a farmer who owed Seji 5 rupees. Okay, for 6 months, the man never paid Seji back. He did not even come to give him some offering in the form of curd or cow dung or all those things that Seji loved. And his house was at least 3 miles away. And whenever Seiji went to go and collect, this man would make excuses. So Seiji decided to go put off going. Okay, he stopped going for some time. But this particular day, he decided to go. He said, I will get my money no matter how much this man scream and moan. So he decided to set off. But Seiji had a problem. Okay, he was ashamed to walk on foot, but since he was a stingy man, he did not want to take a ride. So he pretended to be walking slowly, as if he was going for a stroll. And as he walked, he pretended to talk to people so that people will not understand that he is going on a long journey. Suddenly, he met an Eka coming his way. The Eka driver, who was a Muslim, asked, Where do you have to go, Lala? I don't have to go anywhere, Seji said. It's just 2 steps more. However, I suppose I might as well have a seat. So as he was walking, suddenly an Eka driver stopped and asked him where he was going. To that, Seiji said, I am not going anywhere. I just have to walk 2 more steps to reach my destination. But since you ask me, I might as well take a ride. Now, hearing this, do you think the Eka driver will be happy? Let's see what happens next. The Eka driver gave Seiji a piercing look, and Seiji stared back with his fierce red eyes. Both of them understood that the other was going to prove a slippery proposition. The Eka started to roll. Seiji made the first move. Where is your house, my good man?